Welcome to the You Love You LLC podcast, where we discuss things of concerning self-love. And today I've asked a friend, a brother, a confidant, a counselor, a regular, I don't know what, Mr. Shelton. I've invited Mr. Shelton to come on. He's known as Quabana, but I will allow him to introduce himself. We'll be discussing self-love and all things concerning recovery and how basically recovery has affected him and our relationship and different things of that nature. But first off, Mr. Shelton, would you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for inviting me, first of all, brother, friend, confidant. I appreciate you and all the work that you're doing, and I'm honored that you invited me here to the space to share whatever it is you believe God has on my heart that would help and edify others that might be listening. So, I am in Akron, Ohio. I am a twice retired from education, the field of education. University of Akron, Ohio Department of Education, Akron Public Schools.
Wow.
But I spent most of my latter adult years in consulting, educational consulting, and now as a grief recovery method specialist. I pride myself in that work, helping people go from discovery to recovery and healing in the process. So it doesn't matter male, female, old, young, race, gender, ethnicity, it doesn't matter. We all have one thing in common, and that is that we're 100% grievers. And as a result of that, we try to help people learn tools to move through that process. And so I've done a lot of work in community, still doing work in community, and passionate about, Black empowerment. Um, I'm passionate about historical and cultural relevance. I am an advocate for inequitable practices. And my life's mission has been aligned to that. And you called me Kwabena a little while ago. That's just my African weekday name, which means I was born on a Tuesday. And
Wow.
there's a lot of attributes that's assigned to Kwabenas, and but without going into a whole lot of detail about that, I'll just tell you I'm in the tradition of the likes of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Harriet Tubman and some of those Quabinas. So yeah, so glad to be here.
Absolutely. I can see that in you. All of those that you mentioned, I can see every bit of that. I know
Yeah.
that we meet and talk and discuss several times, and you always hit us with a series of questions, which I stumble upon or end up going 90 miles around the question and come back and say, well, what did you ask me? Either
Yeah.
way, I'm glad that you're here, man. Welcome. I knew that you had done some things in the community and things of that nature, and it just enlightened. It helps me to know that there's individuals like you out there that give back, and that's one of the reasons that I come through the process that I have, and now found that one of my life goals is to spread love. And I know that hundreds of people have tried to do that, thousands, probably a whole bunch more than that. But I know that the unique style and my personal personality has one other individual out there that I might be able to help. And I'm in search of that one individual. So thank you so much for coming and sharing with me. Now, I did send over some questions and have some stuff based on self love and based on recovery. As you know, when I first launched this, it I was trying to use it as a 1 year anniversary to show other family members or other families that are affected by the alcoholic or the addict, that, family members are affected, whether they're the alcoholic or not. So I developed several questions on just a general relationship with us. Now you can stick to the questions or go anywhere, uh, any depth or whatever. I have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind. So hopefully I won't punch no walls or anything to tell your answers around. I'm sure I will not, but feel free to speak freely. This is unscripted besides the questions that I sent you. So One of the first questions that I have is, how has my alcoholism and addiction impacted your life and our relationship?
Well, Wendell, when you first sent me your questions and I went through them, I was like, oh my goodness, this should be interesting to say the least. That question in particular, it's probably had a very significant impact uh, on my life and our relationship because partly because I was not aware of the level of addiction that you had. I was under the impression that it was being managed and controlled, and that it wasn't something that I needed to be worried or concerned about. And so because of that, I feel that I too was probably complicit in some of it because we had our rounds going from spot to spot and having quote unquote fun. But I didn't realize the level of addiction in terms of the control over your life in particular, since the question was about you. And once I got a hold of it for what it was, it um, significantly impacted our relationship because um, I didn't know how to help per se. I have my own levels of guilt and involving myself in alcoholic consumption with you. Um, uh, and and then when you made the choice to get the help, I realized that it would cause. Well, prior to that, I think that's when my brother died. I think you missed the funeral. And I was angry about that, heard about it, disappointed, frustrated, confused. I couldn't understand how that could happen and how, alcohol and drugs can cause one to not be there and not be there at the same time. And that's when I realized that it was bigger than you. Um, and then, of course, all the things that happened after that just confirmed it and put the icing on the cake. So I was hurt because I didn't know how to move forward in the relationship. Being the kind of a helper person that I am and watching you go through that was painful for me, very painful. Um, to the degree that I said I got to do something personally for me so that I could not, so that I would not allow anything like that to happen back to you again. And and with my brother dying with the alcoholism and cocaine abuse, and that just spread it into the cancer and uh, all the other compounding health challenges that accompanied that. It just scared me because I didn't want to lose another brother. And so, yeah, man, it impacted me in so many different ways emotionally. I think the fact that, I have the tools of the grief recovery method to help me be open and honest about my own feelings and grief, uh, it helped, but it still didn't take the grief still is grief and it's still emotional. And I felt it at 100%. And then not even being able to talk to you about it was even more um, challenging, to say the least. It was more challenging because I couldn't, at one time we talked about everything, and then you were gone. I couldn't talk to you at all about anything, especially as it related to you. And then when you came back, I was um, hmm, probably conflicted because on one hand I was super happy, that of the path that you had chosen and how you had cleaned up.
Hmm.
And then I was sad because I lost track of the person who I lost track of you, in that short amount of time. And again, there were so many things I wanted to talk with you about that I had to just suspend. And I did it probably more for your sake than for mine. So that first question right there, boy, sent me way down the emotional rabbit hole. Yeah, it did. So I don't know. I guess that's it for that question.
Wow.
Woo!
Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much for going through it and answering it. And again, any of these questions that uh, you want to dodge, no, not, did I say dodge? I'm sorry. I'm trying to make laughter of it because yes, it was very uncomfortable that I didn't show up. And only thing I could answer, soon after that moment was, man, I was stuck. And for those that don't understand addiction and alcoholism led me up to my primary drug of choice, which was crack cocaine. And I went off a deep end and just got stuck with all the intentions to come, but really ended up stuck. And I
Yeah.
now, in some of my stories, share that even after I got unstuck, I came back to
Yeah.
Pittsburgh and got stuck in a porta john for 2.5 hours after that. So it was
And,
just,
and the- yeah,
go
and
ahead.
the thing with that too, Wendell, is that you covered it so well. You managed it or masked it, or I don't know what the word is, but I had no idea that the drugs was even there. I just thought it was all alcohol, and it was similar with my brother. But my brother, because he was losing weight and there were physical changes I saw with him, I sensed. I didn't know, but I said there's something else going on with him other than his alcoholism, and I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew it was something else. But with you, there was no real symptoms of physical symptoms that I could identify. So I had no idea that drugs was even involved in your life. Could that involved number one, and then at the level that it was, I just
Well,
didn't know.
one of the books that I read says that alcoholism and addiction is the rapacious creditor. It will come for your butt. And
Mm,
with having some time of recovery, from February 2nd, 2000 to January 2016, God, a higher power, 12 steps, a sponsor, and all of those things kept me sober. And I was involved with the program and everything. But there's something they say in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous is that your disease continue to grow along the way. So I started in 91. I finally put together some time from February 2nd, 2000 to January 29th, 2016. And from January 29th, 2016 to actually November 17th, when I first went to treatment, uh, the alcoholism led up to, but the minute I started smoking crack cocaine again, it was like I never stopped over those 15, 20 years. And so it hit me and took me so fast that I didn't even know. Within 5 weeks, I was at my wits' end. And so uh, I appreciate you sharing that with me. And I'm glad our lines of communication has gotten better. I know they're nowhere where we were once before all of this transpired, but I'm looking forward to all of that. Uh, Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to read the rest of the questions and you can answer them any kind of way or tie them in, or would you like to answer them one on
I don't know. One on one is I like the one on one is fine. I
one?
take things in small chunks. I think the big thing is too much for me to handle emotionally, especially just coming from out of a grief group.
Wow. Yes. Well, I appreciate you coming right on in. You're a champ as you are. So, second question was, in what ways has my recovery journey influenced your own personal growth and understanding of addiction?
Well, I think your journey made it real for me that um, it doesn't have a face, right? My brother's face of the addiction was one thing. Yours is something totally different from him. And then it put me in touch with my own habits and patterns. of alcohol use,
mm,
and it's sometimes even abuse. Because um, at 21, 22 years old, when I got married,
mm,
that was the last time I drank. No, in 80, is it? I graduated 79. So in 79, from 79 until, so that was 20, all the way up until my mid 30s.
mm,
I had no taste, desire for alcohol or drugs.
mm,
Marijuana was the only drug of choice at that time. Um, and so during my marriage years, I was married for 12 years, and then 4 years after that, I think there was no desire for any alcohol, drugs, or using it in any kind of way to assist me with some of the challenges that I was dealing with in my personal life. And so um, I tell people now that I've probably drank more in the past maybe 7 years than I've drank in all of my adult life.
wow.
Um, and so your journey kind of helped me to put numbers to that, to really say, okay, what happened? What caused me to even begin to drink again? Uh, and I can't remember any significant emotional thing that I can point my finger to. Um, but it just made me more reflective or introspective of what it was that I was doing and what I needed to do for my own healing and my own healing and personal uh, challenges and stuff that I have now currently with the alcohol. And I call them challenges because I still enjoy it. Um, I don't drink every day. I don't drink um, uh, all weekend long or whatever. I don't know what they call that kind of a drinker, but I may have a drink now because of your experience to just a weekend drink, and that'll be either a Friday or a Saturday, and maybe one or two drinks during that period of time. And then but it's curtailed, that drinking for me, and it has influenced me to think a little bit more um, honestly about how what I saw you experience, because it could have been any of us.
Right.
I remember meeting, one of your family members as a result of the same kind of thing. And at the time, I was clean and sober, and was able to have a very positive and significant impact on his life. And we're still friends to this very day. And so, um, but I think now the fact that you are is bigger than recovery from the alcoholism, what I'm watching and observing from you. And it's about recovering from time missed, life missed, um, uh, opportunities missed. And it seems like you're grabbing back the time where they say redeeming your time, as the congresswoman would say. It's like you're redeeming time in your senior years of your life. And so it's influencing me to take these latter years of my life a lot more, even more serious,
Mm,
not just as it relates to alcohol and drinking, but health and relationships and economic empowerment and family, relationships, especially spending time with my grandkids and my daughters, uh, and being more open and transparent about where I am in my own personal journey. And it's not my life is an open book, but it ain't open for everybody. You
Yes,
know, it's open, but it ain't on everybody's show. I
no
don't
matter
want it
what.
to be on. Hmm.
Well, that was one of the things that I had to learn to do, as one of my stories out here, one of the videos attached somewhere to this podcast, somewhere talks
Uh,
about, until I acknowledged the fact that I had a problem and until I acknowledged, because my journeys, once I went off the deep end, my journey began and I started journaling, I realized that I had suffered from trauma. And I think I explained that that particular inappropriate touch was so elusive that I assumed that was love at an early age. And so that afforded me a way to maneuver or to alter my feelings. And so I sought ways to use that to alter my feelings. And I also protected that as a little kid protects whatever, man. I nurtured that trauma and I maintained it because I didn't want nobody to take it. I didn't share that with anybody. So I appreciate all of that. That's brought me up to when I went off the deep end, and now the journaling and the recovery portion have brought all of that out. I cannot say today that I'm an alcoholic because of that, but I do know some of the tricks and trades that I learned growing up to change and alter the way I felt helped fed into the alcoholism and the addiction behavior. A lot of us say once a pickle, you can't go back to being a cucumber. So
mhm.
you're not a pickle yet. Don't become a pickle.
All
Trust me,
right.
because once we
Okay.
cross the lines of addiction and alcoholism, it's no turning back, and a lot of us pursue it to the gates of hell. And so, uh, I have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body because it's a threefold disease. It's physical, mental, and spiritual. And once I get the physical done, then I have to deal with the spiritual and mental. And that's one of the reasons I developed You Love You so we can discuss it on an open platform. But thank
Mhm.
you again for your conversation, your answer. Number three, how can we work together to heal any past wounds or traumas? I think I should have read these questions before, which I did read them. And actually, how can we work together to heal any past wounds or traumas caused by my addiction? And if you don't want to go with the personal, how can family members work with the alcoholic? Because I still want to gear towards people that's not the addiction, the addict that's dealing with the addict, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
So either way, if you can make it personal or suggestions, I think, let me see, what advice would you give to other family members? That's the next question. So yeah, how can we work together to heal any past wounds or traumas caused by my addiction?
So that question, as I was looking at it, it kind of stumped me a little bit. I guess I really did need to have a little bit more clarification about what you mean when you talk about working together to heal any past wounds or traumas caused by your addiction. Can you ask that question a different way?
Well, I'm pretty sure you answered that at the very beginning because there was some trauma and some grief recovery techniques that you needed. Because how could an individual not show up to a funeral? How could a friend, a close friend as we are, as I consider you, so all of those things affected and caused my addiction caused a feeling out of you, some kind of a feeling. So
Hmm.
basically, working together is open lines of communication. Uh, in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, there's the eighth, and ninth step made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. So at one point or another, I had to make a list, and then I'd have to come to that individual and say, "Hey, I've harmed you. Uh, I, I have no excuse for it. What can I do to make it better?" And
Hmm.
so that would give the other person an opportunity to say, well, yes, you did harm me, but as long as you're doing better, you're good. Or, man, I want this, that. A lot of it is restitution from alcoholics and addicts. It's a lot of
Hmm.
financial restitution and things of that nature. Fortunately,
Hmm.
I didn't come to your house and take anything from your house or borrow no lump sum of money. And so
Right.
those kind of things, but still the relationship or friendship, as you spoke earlier, was that we were talking every day almost prior to. And then when the addiction and stuff took over, it was kind of like I was not there anymore. So those kind of things, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah, I think I got it now. I think I talked earlier a little while ago about not being aware of the magnitude of the addictions, right? And
Mhm.
I just remember visiting you in Virginia, I think it was in Maryland, one of the places, and you went to get drugs, but you came back and you said you didn't get them because you were using my car and you didn't want to dishonor all of that opportunity for me to share that with you. And so I felt at that point that you had whatever the addictions was that you had them under control.
Mhm.
And so I never really believed those addictions were like they were. You know, the drug side of the alcohol, like I said, I was complicit in a lot of that because we partied together and we drank together. But I'd never seen you in a non-alcoholic state that I was aware of, or a state that was influenced by, and so part of me was like, hmm, that I felt honored to some degree about that. And so there's no real work around that. I think the real work for us now is trusting that the path that we are on are our paths, and supporting each other in our paths that we're on to be the best version of ourselves now going forward. I think the work is, the ideal of even partnering with me and the other four brothers, um, and making that come alive is also a healing process for all of us. Um, because we have so much in common, yet we're so different, have so many different life journeys. I think that will help us all to work. Um, but I think the open lines of communication you talked about, just being able to still talk and feel free to talk. I think I shared with you maybe a week or two back, or a little while back, that I was at a point where I wasn't um, didn't feel comfortable talking to you as openly and honestly as we used to talk.
Yeah.
And I think your response to me at that time was that you had been so accustomed, I'm paraphrasing, I guess, but you had been so accustomed of being guided with how to do and live and walk and move through, siblings and, other people, that having a clear head to actually walk in your own shoes, for the first time, quote unquote,
Yeah.
was liberating. And, so for me, I still kind of tiptoe around what to say or not to say, because of not knowing how open it would be, how openly it would be received. And I guess that's a trust piece again. There's rebuilding some levels of trust because of the path that I see that you're on now. Um, and I see how excited you are about your path. Um, and in a sense, Wendell, that's kind of traumatic too, because it's traumatic in the sense that it's a grief response. It's a grief response because you're moving in a direction that's yours, and it doesn't necessarily include anybody other than who you want it to include.
Yeah.
However, um, you still you still make the space, but it ain't the same space because I think you don't want, this is just my thoughts and opinions about it. I feel that you don't want to go back to that person who was controlled and manipulated and abused, that put that kind of fueled all this stuff, right? And so I think I'm learning to walk in the newness of where you are. As a brother, I still look to with brotherly eyes to say, okay, you going a little bit too far here, but I don't have that same comfortability that I used to have to be able to just say it and not worry about you your reaction
Right.
or that it might trigger something that will cause you to move further away. Because I do feel you're moving away. Um, and so it's just a matter of working on, you know, those things that drew us together in the first place, and those things um, that empowered us to be our best authentic selves, and those things that support us in our purpose and our destiny. You know, recommit to that over and over again. That's where I'm at. Um,
Awesome, awesome. Yes, as you stated, and I have moved forward because I was always valuing and seeking yours, my brothers, my mom, my co-workers, whoever I could ask, well, what you think I should do about this? What you think I should do about that? And through prayer, meditation, journaling, and a lot of shadow work, I found out. I think I joked with you one time, about, man, I'd really like to meet that guy that y'all could keep saying that. Man, you're a hell of a guy. And I said, man, I really want to meet that guy one day. And so I met that guy, and that guy being me, and it's so new that I am scared of losing that individual. It's just not. I don't know how to explain it. I just felt so controlled. Not that you were controlling, but I was always asking those big brother questions, or hey, big brother, what do you think about this? What do you think I should do about that? And I lived my life like that, and so now it's freeing to know that the choices I make are mine. I can't blame anybody else. And I don't want to ever do that ever again in my life. So I tread real lightly on that. I will improve on communicating my intentions and uh, getting us in the same room and things of that nature. But as you stated, it, man, I try to explain to people sometimes meeting me for the first time in over 59 years. I just celebrated my 61st birthday.
yeah.
And if I tell you 59 of those years was lived on what I was taught to do, it was indoctrinated schooling, family, 2.5 kids, all of these things. I'm supposed to act a certain way. I'm supposed to be a certain way as a brother, a son, a child, a husband, all of
Mm,
these checklists. And to be free of that, some people have lived being themselves all their life, but this is all new to me, and I've been in recovery before. I never had that experience. So I guess the length of time that it took to get me where I am is what it took. But I've got away from the actual question. But yes, I will work on all of those, some of those. And uh, not that I'm running from the relationship. Our relationship is just that I want to make sure that I'm making my own decisions and choices. I welcome anything. You might get cussed out, whatever. But at the end of the day, we're brothers, and I'll love you no matter what. So I'll appreciate your input.
thank
Next
you.
question. You good?
I'm good.
I'm gonna have to look at this again and see what in the world have I committed to or didn't commit to. Anyway, what advice would you give to other family members who are supporting a loved one struggling with addiction?
That's a good question. And when I thought about that question, when I thought about both you and my brother, I mean, I have a biological brother who was going through major addictions, and I had a brother from another mother, you being you, that I felt closer to than even my brother. And it's the ironic part about it is y'all are the same ages. And so that's what intensified my emotional connections and disconnections with all of this. Part of it was longing for the brother that I didn't have, uh, um, and then hoping that the brother that I had didn't become the brother that I had, if that makes any kind of sense. So the advice, um, I think for me, and one of the things I had to acknowledge when I was going through the grief recovery method is that my emotional responses to my brother were real, they were human, they were normal, they were natural, and they were really okay for me to have.
Mm.
And it didn't make me bad or good, evil or dark or angel of light. It just made me human. And realizing that those emotions are part of who I am, and I was feeling them as a response to the reactions and actions that were happening, um, with and for and upon me. So with my brother, for example, knowing um, that his alcoholism um, was serious to the degree that I watched him manipulate people and I watched him, hurt himself and I watched him, do harm to the family and how it, didn't allow him to really connect in a way that I thought he should be connecting. That I withdrew, and he would always tell me, you just love me for who I am." And my response to him always was, "I do love you for who you are. I just don't like what you're doing, and I don't want to be a part of that." And so, because I loved him and did not want to be drawn in to because it could have been me, didn't want to be drawn into that. I disconnected emotionally from him to save my own emotional health. And I think to some degree that saved me from probably even becoming an addict or taking alcoholism to a whole nother level. But my personal self-evaluation of what was going on with him, even though it was painful to disconnect emotionally from him, it was something that was necessary in order for me to stay healthily awake to support him, when he was really, on the very downside of it. And being conscious enough to have had dealt with those emotional um, triggers that were inside of me through that process of grief, the grief recovery method, I was able to own my emotions, you know, express them, address them, and not allow them to dictate how I reacted upon him, you know, treat him mean or treat him dishonorably or, disparage him to other people in public and things like that. And then of course my relationship with God tempered that. So I think helping other family members, to support, I would say we always had to have our own inner strength and be honest and real with our emotional state of being at all times. Um, Not necessarily being in control of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, but being able to manage them as best you can because there's times when you just can't. And when you can't, be okay with the fact that you're human and that you don't have it all to be able to address persons where they are. All you could do and be responsible for is your own reaction. And so be aware that that addictions are real. They take over life. They convert people to something that they're truly not. Because in those moments of crazy addictive stupors, I saw my brother who was born um, as my new little baby brother. I saw him still through all of that, and that this was the guy who I loved, who made me a brother, a big brother, and who uh, loved me and supported me and encouraged me and was proud of me and all those kinds of things. And he struggled with me making him feel that I loved him and I honored him and I was proud of him, even though he was an addict and so. And so uh, those kinds of things I think are important for a person to know that they're loved and they're valued and they're appreciated. And no, you may not agree with lifestyle choices that are drug and alcohol influenced. No, it may not align with your principled religious, spiritual convictions, but it doesn't mean that you have to shut them out or off just because it's different from where you're at. And my brother showed me that because his was just so glaring. And so I was able to deal a little bit different with you and that um, you know, you was good at concealing your craftiness to the degree that I didn't even know that you were there at the times that you were. And I think had I known, it would have probably devastated me, to be honest, as I'm thinking about it.
Well, I'm glad that you're not devastated. I know there's some healing that's needed, and I just appreciate you being candid with us. I have one parting shot, and then we'll give you the platform to take a parting shot. But what resources or support systems have been most helpful for you in navigating the challenges of having a family member in recovery? And prior to your answer to that, I would like to state that there are groups out there. And my first round with Alcoholics Anonymous, there's a group called Al Anon for the supporting members, and they have a 12-step program which teaches them not to uh, give in to some of the tactics that alcoholics give and all of those things. So I'll put the link down there for Al Anon and Alateen and different resources of that nature for anyone that's interested in getting additional help. But again, what resources or support systems have been most helpful for you in navigating the challenges of having a family member in recovery?
Man, I think, like I said, I can't give props enough props to the grief recovery method and the things I've learned through that institution about grief and loss and dealing with individuals who are dealing with that, because we teach in that system that there are over 40 something different loss events that happens in the course of a person's lifetime. And that extends far beyond death and divorce. And so understanding uh, that a lot of what I was pushing down was unresolved and uncommunicated grief responses, and that learning those tools to be able to deliver those communications now, so that I won't have to feel a certain kind of way in the event that I'm no longer able to communicate those emotions and feelings. I'm able to do it now, um, and being okay with the fact that what I am feeling in the moment is real and normal and natural. So the Grief Recovery Method Institute was one big source of support for me. I think my network of spiritual friends and family members are helpful because they pour into your heart, into your spirit, which empowers me to do those things that are bigger than my ability intellectually and physically to do. I think other support systems is tapping into the support systems that are available to the addicted loved one. I know when I took my brother to treat to a facility, um, he didn't stay, and it hurt. That hurt that he didn't stay, even though I knew it was necessary. When he was at a point where his body functioning was decreasing, and his liver, I mean, his kidneys were shutting down. And in order for them to help keep him alive, he had to be willing to come off the drugs and detox so that they can treat the cancer.
Yeah.
And he made the choice for the drugs, as opposed to living living and being able to spend more time with his daughters and his grandchildren, and now his great grandchild. Uh, so tapping into the systems with them as opposed to having them go,
Yeah.
and because that's frightening for them, to be on that journey and path by themselves. I've learned, and so being a support in them with them in their systems of support and need, and then reading and taking the whole addiction serious,
Mhm.
learning about it and studying, doing my own due diligence and looking at what does it mean for them? What does it mean for me? What does it mean for, how to best give, because I've seen on the other hand, people addicted with drugs and alcoholism and the support person constantly and being there, which uh, enabling them to continue to use them and abuse them because their abuse becomes abusive behavior.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I'm getting off what's the question? I know. So I think they're tapping into the resources that are available for both them and for yourself and participating as a loving support person and not as a duty or, because people feel when you're doing stuff for duty and you're not really connecting to understand to be a support person. So being genuine in that.
Most definitely. Well, man, I cannot thank you enough for coming and sharing your experience, strength, and hope with us. Again, you love you, dealing with self love, recovery, family members, and addiction and alcoholism. We've had the pleasure to enjoy Mr. Terrence Shelton. I'll let you say your day name Tuesday, or whatever name you said, and all of the ancestors that you have pulled down through the ranks to be right here to support me and encourage me and to keep me going in the right direction. It is greatly appreciated. And my heart is humbled to be able to have this conversation candid with you. And I look forward to having additional more conversations and even let you rough me up and every night into, no, you're supposed to do it this way. And
Yeah.
I'm going to probably look at you a little crazy. But in parting, I just wanted to thank you once again. Any closing remarks, sir?
No, man, I just say thank you for even having the mind to even ask me to do something like this with you. I'm honored. Um, Again, it makes me even reflect more seriously about the journey that you're on and how to continue to support it. Um, Being aware of how invasive drugs and alcohol can be when it becomes addictive in our behaviors, uh, and continually monitoring my own until it gets to a point where I just don't want it anymore again. I mean, I've been in that place before. Uh, my health is still in pretty good shape. And so I'm banking on the fact that that's good, but that can turn at any moment. So I want to make sure that it doesn't turn because of stuff that I can stop and control right now. So I appreciate you and your journey and keeping me connected at the levels that you have. I'm learning through you. I'm observing um, how to and how not to for myself with you. And I'm really happy and ecstatic about the fact that you have found your lifesaver, uh, your juice that gives you power, your superpowers. Um, all it does is just enhances who you've been, the person that you have been, you're still that guy, that lovable, life-giving, you know, person that takes over the room when you walk in. You're still that guy. And I'm honored to be walking in the shadows of that guy. So one brother is gone, but I have I know a new I have a brother that's whole and healthy and moving towards that end that I can continue to latch on to. So thank you.
Awesome. Appreciate it. I did hear you mention grief recovery once again. If you'd tell us how we can get in touch with you, I'm trying to get him on my website so he can support me as grief recovery section of mine. And just so you know, alcoholics grieve their alcoholism. They grieve losing that connection that they had with alcohol. I'll keep it personally because I can never tell you what you got. I can only talk on what I have. But I definitely grieved the process of the alcoholism and the addiction and the trauma. I nurtured it as I talked about that, and I grieved all of those things. So I had to learn techniques and ways. So if I felt this way when I was in trauma, alcoholism, and all of those things, I did X, Y, Z. And so now that I'm in recovery, I have to have those same techniques that I used then. I had to develop new techniques to get me back on point. So uh, give us your contact information, and I would love to continue going on, but I need to stop the I need to close the
That's
podcast down, and then we can chop it up after that, sir. Thank you so
okay.
much. Give us
Yeah,
your
no problem. Well, you can find information about the grief recovery method at griefrecoverymethod.com/GRMS, as in Shelton, slash Kwabena, KWABENA dash Terrence, TERRENCE dash Shelton, SHELTON. And it'll give you a bio about what I do as a specialist. And you can go to my website, navigate5.com, and it'll give you information. There's questions and surveys and things that you can fill out as well that would allow you to tap into some of the services that we have available for you at Navigate Inc. Again, thank you.
awesome. When I grow up, Doc, I'm gonna be just like you, man. That's all. Thank you so much again. Peace, love, and joy, and happiness, and abundance, and great health. Thank y'all for visiting, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.